Hello and welcome to the fourth and final lesson in the Big Four, the Core Four series of the logicalenglish.com lessons. A quick reminder, if you haven't already watched lessons 1, 2 and 3, please head on back to the website logicalenglish.com and watch those. You're going to find those extremely important. While you're there, don't forget also to download a study guide which will help you with this lesson. As I say, this is the final of the Big Four lessons. It's on the subject of adverbials, adverbs, adverbials, and I will say adverbials and freedom. It is, however, much shorter than the other Big Four, the other Core Four lessons. And in fact, it might even be shorter than the other short lessons on the website. Nonetheless, I've included it in this Big Four to show that it is an absolutely vital and important lesson. So on the subject of adverbs and adverbials, as always, well, let's begin with something that we're very familiar with. Okay, so beginning things nice and simply, hopefully you guys remember from the first lesson, from the Logic of English, that in English and indeed in all languages, we divide words into different categories. We class them in different ways. This is how we do it in English. We've got nouns, verbs, adjectives, prepositions, adverbs, articles, and perhaps a new one for you, conjunctions. Let's just have a quick reminder of what those are, or what they do. Nouns, if we remember, they're metaphors for things. They represent things, whether they're real things or imaginary things, countable things or uncountable things. Nouns still represent things. We've got verbs, which I suppose we can often describe as doing words. So we've got words like run, jump, think, have, take. Adjectives, well, they describe nouns, don't they? So you could have a cat and you could have a big cat, remembering that the adjective always goes before the noun it's describing. We've got prepositions, words like in, to, from, about. Well, that's 4 of them. Can anyone remember how many more we have in English? Yeah, unfortunately, there's about 122 more. They'll always be problematic, but let's remember their job. They're there to show a relationship between two noun phrases. I mean, for example, if I say cat on wall, it's not cat under wall, it's not cat in wall, cat on wall. We've got the relationship between cat and wall. We've got articles, things like a, an, the, and we've also got what we would refer to as the zero article, no article at all. There are things called conjunctions, which are words which are designed to connect two clauses. For example, if I say, I like the book, well, we've got a main clause there. Why? Because it is good. But we've got two full clauses there being connected with a word, for example, because, and that kind of word connecting two clauses is called a conjunction. The one remaining category we've got here is the start of our subject today, and it's the category of adverbs. Let's move on and have a quick look at them. Now, we've just discussed some of the jobs of the other words in English, but this subject of adverbs, as always, I've got a quick question for you. Which of the following can an adverb do? In other words, what is the job or are the jobs of an adverb? Well, can they qualify a verb? Oh, by the way, the word qualify here, I just mean describe. Can it qualify a verb? Can it qualify a noun? An adjective? Another adverb? Which one or ones of these can it do? Well, I hope you remember that from the first lesson that in fact the only thing from this list that an adverb cannot do is qualify a noun. So it can't qualify a noun, but it can qualify a verb, an adjective, and another adverb. Let's take a look at some examples of this. We've got always, never, extremely, incredibly, lots of those ly words when we take the adjective and add ly at the end. And well, if we take an example of qualifying a verb, well, I run. I always run. There we go, qualifying a verb. Qualifying an adjective. It is big. It is really big. Okay, we're now qualifying an adjective. Qualifying another adverb. I am talking honestly. I am talking very honestly. So the word very is qualifying the adverb honestly there. Let's get some more examples of adverbs up here. What have we got? Well, for example, rarely, luckily, often, thoughtfully, and let's put one more. Let's say thankfully. But honestly, you know, you could go into the many thousands of these in English. Now, one of the first things that I'd like you to do with some of these adverbs is, well, let's have a look. I'd like you to place the adverbs or adverb phrases, by adverb phrase I mean a sequence of words which does the job of an adverb, but is more than one word. I'd like you to place the adverbs or adverb phrases into the correct positions in these sentences. And these sentences are in your study guides as well. And these are the adverbs I'd like you to place in because, annoyingly enough, and I'm sorry to begin from an annoying position here, but some of these only have one position they can naturally go in. So take a moment now and have a look at your study guide and see if you can place these adverbs into the correct positions into these sentences. And I'll remind you that by this point in your English, this should come as second nature. Hopefully you've seen that, well, I drink tea after 10 o'clock in the evening. If we're putting the word never in, well, I never, let's put it there. I never drink tea after 10 o'clock in the evening. That's the only natural place for that word to go, for that adverb to go. I do my food shopping on Sunday afternoons, with the word always. We're going to put it in basically the same position. I always do my food shopping on Sunday afternoons. It just doesn't sit naturally to put it anywhere else. What about the word extremely in my pet can jump high? Which word are we describing in that sentence using the word extremely? And you're absolutely right. It goes just before the word high. So my pet cat can jump extremely high. In the sentence, sorry, I'm not good at playing tennis, we want to put the adverb very in somewhere. So we're going to say, sorry, I'm not very good at playing tennis. This word occasionally, I like to go to the cinema. Well, in fact, we've got a few different positions for this one here, haven't we? We could say, occasionally I like to go to the cinema. You could say, I occasionally like to go to the cinema. I like to go to the cinema occasionally, putting it right at the end. Those would be some natural positions for that word occasionally, and I think they're all absolutely fine. Finally, this one, once in a blue moon. We've got an adverb phrase here, several words which mean incredibly rarely. I go to the theatre. Where are you going to put once in a blue moon? Well, when it comes to these multi-word adverbs, really they only have two positions. They can either go right at the beginning or right at the end. It just is not natural in English most of the, I'm going to say the majority of the time, to put a multi-word adverb in the middle of the sentence. Those, especially the adverbs, that multi-word adverbs of frequency, will either go at the beginning or the end. But as I say, at this point in your English, most of you're probably aware of this already before I get things a little bit more complicated. Okay, so far so good. I know you guys know how to use adverbs and putting them into their various different positions. That's kind of second nature to you guys by now. So I'm going to move things on with this next little exercise. I'm not going to say too much about it now. I'll just bring it up. You can see several phrases in front of you and they all come together to create one sentence. And what I would like you to do is to place those phrases into the correct order so they create a correct sentence. Okay, I'll give you a moment to do that now. Okay, so what do we have? In Southwest London on 30th of... Okay, we've got the various different phrases. I'm going to imagine that that this is in class and that people are shouting out answers. So let's imagine that someone said, I don't know, number one, on 30th of October 1983, one Sunday, late at night. Let's get all those times together. And now Michael was born. We'll have a place. That's mentioning the mother. Okay, so I'm going to imagine that one student has said, has given me this sequence. And you know what? To that student, I would say absolutely correct, spot on, no problem at all. Oh, hold on, but there's someone else trying to give me an answer here. Let's have a look at another answer. So someone else is saying, well, let's say beginning with that one, then that one, that one. They've then gone for that one, next that one, and finally the place right at the end. And to that student, I would say absolutely correct. Congratulations, bravo. But there's one more student with their hand up. And that student says something along the lines of, two there, on 30th of October 1983, one Sunday, Michael was born in Southwest London with a lot of difficulty. And you know what? To that student as well, I'm going to say absolutely correct. Can you see a pattern forming here? Hopefully. Before we take a closer inspection of that pattern, there's two more questions I'd like you to answer for me. First question, which part or parts of the sentence can we remove? And second question, which part or parts of the sentence can we definitely not remove? So let's have a look at the answers to some of these questions then. Which part or parts of the sentence can we remove with no problem? Well, first of all, if we remove in Southwest London, yeah, it's okay. That's just a small detail missing. That's fine. So we can remove that. We can remove this one. We can remove to a woman named Caroline. We can remove late at night. We can remove one Sunday, and we can remove with a lot of difficulty. The only part of this sentence, the only phrase here that we absolutely cannot remove is this Michael was born. That Michael was born represents the main clause in our sentence. Everything else you see, the in southwest London on 30th of October 1983, one Sunday with a lot of difficulty late at night to a woman named Caroline. They're all called something, maybe a new term for you, but it's a term that's been sitting up at the top of the screen for the lesson. They're all called adverbials. Not adverbs, but adverbials. Let's take a closer look at what adverbials actually are. So let's take a look at these adverbials in closer detail then, and let's continue with another quick question. Shouldn't take you too long. Which of the following questions do these adverbials answer? Who, when, where, and how? Let me also remind you at this point that we're not going to include Michael was born in this, because that's the main clause in the sentence. It's not an adverbial, it's a subject, verb, object, or in this case it's a passive structure. We're talking about the other phrases here, the adverbials. Now, in southwest London, what question from the bottom does that answer? Well, clearly, that's where. On 30th of October 1983 is, of course, when. One Sunday, well, any random Sunday, in fact it's that Sunday on 30th of October, is another when. To a woman named Caroline is, of course, who. Late at night is another when. And with a lot of difficulty, that's a how. So we've got these various different adverbials answering the different questions who, when, where, and how. So what can we now say about almost all adverbials, not single adverbs, that answer these questions? Well, I hope you've put two and two together by now and realised what's actually happening. And you know, having a look at the title of the lesson the whole time, it's not really surprising at this point that you have absolute and total freedom in this. So far in English, we've spent so long building up so many different rules. And your mind is filled with ways that we can do things, ways that we can't do things. But here, when it comes to the subject of adverbials, let me make this completely clear. These multi-word adverbials, which answer the questions who, when, where, and how, can go in absolutely any order you choose. You have total freedom in this, and it really doesn't matter which order you place them in. You can place them in an order for poetic reasons. You can place them in an order because that's the way it makes sense to you. You can place them in an order because that's when this information occurred to you. It just doesn't matter, and you have total freedom. And if you're still doubtful about any of this, let's prove it. Let's have a look at a real-world example, an example, in fact, that I took from Wikipedia. So coming up on the screen now is the article all about John Lennon, adapted from Wikipedia. So I didn't write it myself. And what I would like you to do is to go through it and underline everything that you see which is an adverbial. Anything which answers the question who, where, when, or how. And the purpose of this is to show you just how much of everything we write, everything we say, is one of these movable adverbials. So in a moment we'll check with each other, but just for now, see if you can underline, and you've also got it in your study guide, of course, the same article. In your study guide, please underline all of the adverbials that you can see. Right, now hopefully you've had a chance to go through that. Hopefully you've maybe paused the video or something and taken a moment to complete the task. So let's go through it together now. And as we're going through it, and as I'm underlining all the adverbials in this extract, I hope you remember that all of these adverbials within each paragraph can be picked up and moved wherever you like. So let's start going through this. Well, Lennon was born. We've got that passive. That's the main clause there. We can't do anything about that. But in wartime England. Okay, in wartime England answers the question where. On 9th of October 1940 answers when. At Liverpool Maternity Hospital is another where. To Julia and Alfred Lennon answers when. So with that little mini paragraph, we could change it to, I don't know, in wartime England, to Julia and Alfred Lennon, on 9th of October 1940, at Liverpool Maternity Hospital, Lennon was born. No problem at all. Let's move on to the next paragraph. The Beatles were an English rock band. Well, there we've got the main clause. The Beatles were an English rock band. And actually here this active, who were, you remember from lesson 3, relative clauses, who were active, we've actually got a reduced relative clause there. Just that one word, active. But this reduced relative clause does contain its own adverbial throughout the 1960s. But the main clause continues, and were one of the most commercially successful and critically acclaimed acts. Well, acts when? In the history of popular music. That's something that answers the question when. So that can be picked up. That's an adverbial. That can be picked up and moved around. Formed where? In Liverpool. Okay. Now we are beginning with what's called a participle clause here, and it's a contraction of they were formed. But still, formed in Liverpool. We've got formed as the main clause. By 1962, we've got an adverbial there. The group consisted. So that's it. I mean, really, that's the main clause continuing here. The group consisted. And now we're answering the question, who? Of John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. And I encourage you to remember that you really can, if you want to, say of John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr, the group consisted. It's a little bit poetic, maybe, but there's really grammatically no problem with it. Let's continue on to the final paragraph. At around 10:50 p.m. So we've got an adverbial that answers the question when there. On 8th of December 1980, another when. As Lennon and Yoko Ono being his wife, returned, as they returned, to their New York apartment. Let's put that in there as well. So we've got another when. Where? In the Dakota. Well, you'd probably want to put in the Dakota with the New York apartment. That probably makes a lot of sense there. Now we've got the main clause. Mark David Chapman shot Lennon. There's the main clause. That's the one thing that we cannot remove from this paragraph. But and yeah, this is a sad story. It's a great, believe me, this is not something I take a huge amount of joy in reading out here. But where did he shoot him? In the back. How many times? 4 times. Where? At the entrance to the building. So we've got a few different things answering the question where there. And then Lennon was taken. Got another main clause there, albeit a passive main clause. Where? To the emergency room of nearby Roosevelt Hospital. Okay. And was pronounced dead. So now we're continuing the main clause. But when? On arrival at 11:07 p.m. Now don't forget, I didn't write that myself. That's just taken from a public piece of writing. And just look at how much of it consists of these adverbials, these things which can be picked up and thrown around in the sentence to your heart's content as it occurs to you for whatever reason you choose. But, and this will be the final message from these core 4 lessons, and I think it's a deserved message. No matter how much you want to throw these adverbials around for whatever reason, poetic reasons, logical reasons, there's one thing that you cannot escape from in English. One thing that you must remember all the time. And that thing that you must remember at all times is, well, hopefully I've drummed it into you enough by now, but let's refresh our memories. First of all, something to remember, a complete sentence must contain a main clause. And hopefully I don't need to tell you by now that that main clause must contain subject, verb, object. Maybe just subject, verb, maybe just subject, verb, adjective, but that main clause needs to be complete. All the other adverbials, throw them wherever you like around that main clause. So, as always, that just leaves me to say thank you very much for watching. I hope this video has been helpful to you. As always, if it has been helpful to you, don't forget to head on to the website and please donate a little something for the upkeep of the website and for me doing these videos. There are more videos to come, of course. You've done the big 4 core lessons now, but there are other smaller ones to come. For example, how you can decide between subject, verb, object and just subject, verb, or the differences between gerunds and infinitives and how you can decide. So there will be more videos to come. And until then, take care. Thank you.